public comments. Adjourn to closed session. to open session. Mr. Burton will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Ready to begin.
Report on action taken in closed session. There was no action. Call for an adoption of the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Programs and presentations. Our first presentation, Nutrition Services Update. Mr. Jesse Gutierrez.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jesse Gutierrez, Nutrition Services Supervisor here at Palo Verde Unified School District. I'll be discussing our current model that we're currently implementing and an ideal model that we can begin. So to commence, our current model that we currently have is this. We're providing meals on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Monday and Wednesday, we're providing 2 days of meals. On Friday, it's a day that we provide 3 days of meals, excuse me. Right now, we're providing breakfast, lunch, and snack. Go on to the next one. And big issues that we're having with our current model predominantly is based off the fact that the items that we're offering is individually wrapped items. When it comes to individually wrapped items, the cost for each item is quite expensive in comparison to bulk. And on top of that too, we can't offer as many options compared during a standard school year with bulk items. Something else too is to be able to transition when kids are allowed to come in person and trying to balance what we're doing, the curbside pickup, we're doing the vans, the buses, we're dropping off towards sped students. And then in addition, if we have to provide meals in the classroom or in a cafeteria, a big situation that we're kind of experiencing is the state mandates that if a child is on premise for 2 hours or more, we need to provide them a meal. If the child is on site for under 2 hours, but they continue their day at home, we still need to provide them a meal. So a big thing is trying to figure out what is an ideal way to kind of be able to provide all kids an opportunity to get a meal while ensuring that in our case, we're just claiming the appropriate number of meals per child each given day. What I'm proposing and what I feel like could be very beneficial for the community, for the kids, for our staff, is transitioning towards bulk feeding. By transitioning towards bulk feeding, we can just serve on Wednesdays. It will be from like 12 to 3 o'clock p.m. Kids are in class between 9 and 12 o'clock, so it's not going to interfere with their class schedule. Bulk feeding will be more so like we can provide them items that people will otherwise purchase at a grocery store. So we can include eggs, we can include bread, like whole fruit, and it gives them the flexibility to be able to prepare it in any fashion that they would like to prepare it. In addition, when we look more so with the breaks that are upcoming, it won't require for us to be on premise that many times to be able to serve. Not to mention when the kids are allowed to come back in person, it'll be make it a lot easier. On a Wednesday, we can provide a week's supply of food to an entire community. In addition, we can incorporate a fourth meal each day, a supper, which right now our current model, we can't incorporate that because they're already getting 12 to 18 items each and every day of individually wrapped items. I have a menu that compares the single day menu in comparison to the bulk feeding. And a big thing that you'll be able to notice is this. Majority of the individually wrapped items, they cost a lot more. As a matter of fact, the difference between single day and bulk feeding, we'll be able to cut our expenses by like 80%. So that to be huge. Not to mention, we're anticipating that the turnout for the community, it should be more appealing and our numbers should go up. As of now, for the last 2 months, we're down around $200,000 in comparison to previous years. So this is something that we're hoping that could bring the amount of kids coming out, increase that number while cutting the cost, which should truly help out our budget. The idea is to be able to provide 4 options in terms of each week. They'll get a different option, so it's not like they're getting the same thing week after week. I'm trying to swap it up so it can complement each other too. and incorporate things that can accommodate for any sort of special diet for any student that we have or any child as a whole. To be able to implement this, I believe that we can begin as soon as October 28. I've had a chance to discuss with the drivers, identifying the routes, what's the best way to be able to serve our community. Each and every meal right now is going out in a bag. In this case, it will transition towards a box. Give or take, the box that we're looking at is a 16 by 12 by 10. Okay, big priority of ours is to try to keep it as light and as practical as possible. So when it comes to apartment complexes or any stops that has like a bigger community, a bigger amount of kids, we want to make it as accommodating where we can have a stop on like the south end, north, east, west, if we can do that, to make it as easy as possible for each and every kid. And that's the biggest thing in terms of with this bulk transition. I really feel like it can help our community with the holidays, the breaks, and just our budget as a whole. Not to mention our staff will make it a lot easier instead of handling a lot of individually wrapped items. Any questions by any chance?
I have one. You said about 80% reduction in cost?
The food cost, that is correct, yes.
Oh, that's not a no-brainer. I mean, I'm going forward with it.
Let me ask you this.
Please.
What do you have to ensure that that when you, like you said, like a dozen eggs or something like that, that these, the parents have the means to prepare for them?
So the biggest thing that I want to do is I want to include a combination of things that a child, once they get the box, they have a chance to consume immediately. So, and I don't want it to be like just a matter of things that are required to be cooked or prepared. However, I'm trying to kind of find a balance amongst the two. So some things that I am incorporating are like some like bread, some peanut butter and nuts and all that. So if some items, it might not be as easy to prepare when it comes to eggs, for example, or storage. I'm trying to balance it out. So they'll have an opportunity to like find something that works for them. Perhaps it might not be a preference to consume everything that's given.
And do you have somewhat of a hybrid plan?
So the hybrid plan, and so what I included with the menu is I included some of the individually wrapped items even then. So I'm not trying to just solely stick with 100% bulk. You know, the biggest thing is, when I start incorporating more individually wrapped items, the food cost does go up, and the amount of options that I can provide is not as many. So like with the menu that we provide or I created, it's more so by doing 7 days, it allows me the flexibility to offer more combinations. If I limit it down to 3 days or 4 days or anything like that sense, trying to meet the ounce equivalent requirement for grains, meats, and all that, it makes it very, very strict. And I can't offer as many combinations.
Only reason I'm saying that is
Please.
because some of these children live in places where once you give them the bulk, they're no. At school, I get it. At school, there's people to make sure that they eat.
Yeah.
When they go home, there's other people there eating their food, and some of these kids, you give them a week, so you won't be back for a week. Some of these kids are gonna not eat for a week. I just want you to understand the reality of it.
Thank you.
School sometimes is their protection
Yeah.
for them to get a meal. And I think what you're saying is great in a utopian society. But I think it needs a little work to ensure that the children will be able to eat this, that they will be fed. And there's no way, if you just give it once a week and you feed them once a week, there's nothing to ensure that those children will eat.
I get
You understand
that.
what I'm saying?
I do, yes.
That's my concern.
No, yeah.
Maybe, maybe potentially look at twice a week at least. Maybe it's so you, like you said, you don't want them to go 7 days, so maybe doing,
Well,
twice
twice.
a week, then you're getting, at least they're covered.
What I'm saying is like, is there a way to ensure that every child in that household eats?
Yeah, so the biggest thing right now, what I provided, the menu, that's per child. So each child is about to get, for example, a dozen eggs per week. Each child is about to get a gallon of milk per week. What I can do, and if it's easier, I could incorporate additional items that might not need as many or as much preparation. Whether that is, for example, eggs, typically they have to be cooked of some manner,
No.
So-
Don't think I'm disagreeing with your plan.
Okay.
I'm talking about once. The sad part is that we have to understand that some of these children a lot of these children are going to homes where there's not, it's gonna be assured that they're gonna eat that food.
Yeah.
Some people will eat their food, they're not protected and guaranteed that they're gonna eat. I hope y'all not acting like y'all don't know what I'm talking about.
No, of course not.
When a lot of these children come to school, that's their only protection to eat.
Absolutely.
You have a great idea.
Thank you.
Don't, I applaud your idea. The problem is, if you, I'm seeing, here you give them a box.
Yeah.
They get home. You're doing it in good faith that, who wouldn't do this? Unfortunately, in society, people don't take care of their children. And I'm not saying all parents are like that, but there's
Yeah.
some children, how do we assure that the children are gonna eat, are gonna get that food?
Yeah.
That's
So-
all I'm asking.
Yeah, so in our case, in order to get a meal, the requirement that we have is a child needs to be present or a meal ID card, and it needs to be shown to encourage the fact that a child does get the meal. What we're trying to do too is incorporate things that kids like, whether that's during a standard school year, and encourage that. Big thing that we're noticing right now is with the individually wrapped item, if a kid is not too fond of, for example, a grilled cheese, okay, on that day we notice that majority of kids aren't coming out, and in which case they're not having an opportunity to get both breakfast, lunch, and snack for that day and the following days. And that's something that we've noticed. Our numbers right now, it's kind of plateaued, if not dropped, because truth be told, the amount of options that we can provide that's individually wrapped, there's not as many specifically pertaining to the cost. So what I kind of feel and what I'm kind of observing is more so our numbers at this rate will continue to drop. You know, and by incorporating this, it's something that I am aware that it is a decent amount of food, you know, and a lot of times, if it happens to be a family of four, the amount of storage it'll take and the amount of food it'll provide, like I mentioned, each box, give or take, is be around like 20 pounds approximately. And the big thing that I'm trying to figure out and identify is a balance to figure out what is the best way to assure that the child does get the food, and not to mention if they get the food, it's something that the child's going to enjoy and consume in comparison to just get it and tossing it.
I agree with you. I just don't want to, I don't want you to think what I'm saying is misrepresented
course not.
toward you.
No, I appreciate
It
that.
might be more directed toward like Ms. Kern, so they could ensure, like have someone go around, weigh the kids, make sure that they're not losing weight, make sure they're not malnourished. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we're in that same situation now, regardless of whether you do the bulk or you do the individual items. The concern for the kids is there because, like Sam said, our schools are their safe place.
Correct.
It is the guarantee to get meals at least 5 days a week.
Yes.
So whether it's the bulk food or the individually wrapped items, there is no guarantee that that child is eating that food when they get home.
You know,
And it's very difficult for the school district, the police to make sure they get fed. I mean, it's like the food pantry, right? People go and get a box just like you do right now. There's no guarantee that they're just gonna go through it and throw stuff away and eat stuff. I know it's difficult, I understand, because we grew up in a situation, but it's very difficult to put the district in a situation where we got a police. That's not our function. You know, it becomes very difficult for us to even do it. I mean, I don't know. To me, I think it's a good idea because I think most people in this community will feed their children, especially if they have four. You're talking about 4 boxes?
that's correct, yes.
That's 4 milks, that's,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's, I mean, the chances of somebody not getting fed, I mean, it's there.
No, absolutely, and
But
that is very true.
I don't know how we can manage to control, it's a very difficult situation. The welfare department can't do it. And that's what they're for. It's just hard to put that onto the district and say, we gotta ensure that this is being done.
No, of course, and
That's, I mean, it's very difficult to police. I think it's a good idea. I think it's gonna work
you.
better because I've been seeing the numbers drop. I've been seeing the people that usually go are not going to pick up their lunches. So I think this is, to me, it's savings, and you're gonna get more of this product out there in the community.
Thank you. And then on my end too, the biggest goal that I have is I'm trying to increase the amount of food that we can provide our community to kids. Right now, all we can provide is breakfast, lunch, and snack. By doing this model, I'm incorporating a fourth meal. I'm incorporating supper, so they'll get more meals. Something else that's really important to me is provide meals on the weekends and holidays. So on Friday, they're getting enough meals or food to cover the weekend and holidays. With this model, we can continue providing meals when it comes to like the winter break, Thanksgiving break, and it's a little more manageable to be able to go forth.
I think your idea is great. That's what I'm trying to convey. I was just.
Thank you.
My concern was just for. But
Concern is
that's.
more the health and
Yeah,
welfare.
nothing
Yeah,
against you. What you said is great. And-
I appreciate that,
And
man.
that's what I don't want you to, I didn't want to seem like I'm attacking what you said.
No, absolutely
I
not.
just
Thank
wanted to
you.
bring a concern
Thank you.
that I'm saying what, that, you know, there's an elephant in the room that I just wanted to talk about it. That's all.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
My apologies if
No,
if
it's
you
okay.
thought
Yeah.
I was saying something against you. I applaud your idea.
Thank you.
I'm also glad that you're thinking out of the box.
Thank you.
That's what's important. I mean, I would have never thought of this idea.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you went to a conference or something and they told you or you thought of it yourself, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Appreciate
Any other
that.
questions, or?
So we have the direction of the board to continue to move down this path.
I think so. Yes, we're good with that. So thank you for your time, Jesse.
Thank you.
And then Tracy, maybe we need to talk at some point about having some sort of how we're doing kind of health and welfare checks on the kids, like Sam said, just to make sure at what level we can do that.
You guys see the children and
We
they
do.
have their IDs, so that would be a time to look and, you know.
We've talked about the mental health issue, and I know we have teachers reaching out, counselors reaching out, but maybe we need to look at the physical health also.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, our next presentation is the cost breakdown for the modernization and construction. Mr. Jimmy Sanders?
So this is our project update. It includes all of the projects that we're currently working on. Because there are no changes to any of the project scope or layout, it's just the additional information for the cost breakdown for the Twin Palms modernization, district office modernization and new construction, and the Palo Verde High School CTE labs cost breakdown. I'd like to go ahead and forward to that slide that shows the cost breakdown. Yeah, I was gonna see if it would go in reverse. There we go.
Nice working.
There we go. So this is, okay. So our site security project and then our Palo Verde High School sport field lighting project, there's also a cost breakdown for that project per field and a oh yeah, nope, that's what we need, yeah, there we go. And then the proposed bidding for that project, again, there would be a base bid and alternate ads 1 and 2. Our CT Animal Barn project. And then our Twin Palms High School modernization, District Office Modernization and Addition, and Palo Verde High School CTE Labs Modernization and Addition. So again, I'd point out that there are no changes to the scope. They're all, those sheets are all the same. The only thing that we did was we added the square footages to those sheets. And then this is the cost breakdown, the detailed cost breakdown for each of the types of square footages for that building. So we have the Twin Palms High School modernization broken down into Building 1, administration building, and then the restroom modernization. The building is at $168 a square foot, and the restroom modernization is at $402 a square foot. Then we have the classroom 2 building mod at $118 a square foot, and the restroom addition in that building at $402 a square foot. And then we have our lecture hall modernization and the food service modernization and the site improvements for $338,000. So the total breakdown for the Twin Palms modernization is $2,216,550. Okay. So I trust that detailed breakdown as far as the scope for each type of square footage space there is what the board was asking for. I would point out that the next step of this is to now develop those plans to where we can meet with the construction committee and get information and input as to, for example, the cabinetry layout or any other issues or items of concern or input that the construction committee wants to have for that particular portion of the project. Okay. The next item is the Palo Verde High School CTE lab modernization. I have, again, that square footage broken out into the modernization of the Building 7, or I'm sorry, Building 5 and Building 3 as far as lab modernization, restroom modernization, and then lab modernization for Building 3 and 5. So that total project cost is $1,245,482. Now there was some questions or discussion at this point about reusing some existing cabinets at the existing Palo Verde or at the existing Twin Palms labs, and could those be converted to cabinetry or casework that could support a CTE lab? And so I would say that in my experience that it's going to be much more cost effective to take those cabinets out, to mill new cabinets in a shop environment and then install those new cabinets. If we were to try to modify those existing cabinets to meet all the utility requirements, meaning power, data, any water, gas in those cabinets, it's going to be very labor intense. And I would point out that those cabinets don't meet the current ADA standards. And so anytime you do new casework, everything has to meet all of the exact height requirements. And so we're going to be trying to modify existing casework in the field where the labor costs are a lot more than in the shop. So of course we can certainly take a look at that, but I just want to say that we have thought about that, and that it would be our recommendation at this point, and included in these cost estimates, is to take those cabinets out and build new cabinets in a shop environment to support the exact program that's needed there. And that will be determined as we meet with the construction committee to determine the casework for those particular labs. Okay.
So a question, so if you're talking about the cabinetry, does that also include like the lab tables and the infrastructure for the lab on site?
Yeah, so any tables that would be on either casters or just legs, and like a furniture type item, that would just be a furniture. But any
Then a built-in structure for, like how the labs are designed currently?
Yeah, so any built-in casework that's currently there or that would be proposed, and that's what we're talking about, is we're saying that that casework that's currently there was designed specifically to support a certain education program. And it's our understanding that the current program that we're proposing to put in there, which is different than what those cabinets were designed for. So casework, as far as labs go, even between, say, a chemistry lab and a biology lab, is very different because of the utilities. And so if you're going in and trying to modify existing casework, in my experience, it's always cheaper to take it out and to put new casework in to support that specific program. And we want to point out that these cost estimates include taking out that casework and putting new casework in. Okay? Okay, and the next slide here shows the district office modernization and addition. So here we have Building 7 is divided into modernization at $172 a square foot, restroom modernization at $402, and then new construction, 3,033 square feet at $540 a square foot. And then we have Building 6 administration, that's the building that you're going to put your proposed board meeting and professional development room in, and the restroom modernization there. So those are at $128 a square foot and $402 a square foot, respectively, for a total of $3,947,668, with a total estimated cost for $7,410,000. Okay, so that number didn't change from the total cost didn't change from the last time we met. It's just this additional breakdown per square footage. Last time we talked a little bit about the possibility that you have for bidding and your DSA approved documents. So just like your sports field project, this is the same as far as bidding goes. You get approval on the project, and then you can bid out and only do a portion of the project. So for example, if you wanted to only do the Palo Verde High School CTE labs and say the Twin Palms High School modernization, just do that portion of the project, well, you can do that. And so if you want to bid it out to where there's a base bid for those two items and say an alternate ad for the district modernization and the new construction at that portion of the project, you can do that too. So we haven't talked about any options for bidding like we did the sports field lighting project, but I just want to point out that the project would be bid per your direction. Okay. So, any questions?
To manage the projects, there are different methods of managing the projects. General contractor is usually the most common one. Having the architect involved in it all the time. Having a construction management team. Those will be options that the district will have to determine how we're going to proceed with the project and how we're going to manage the project. Do you think that there'd be a cost savings if we, let's say, don't do a construction management compared to a general contractor? Do you normally see a difference in savings if you use, a construction management team as opposed to a general contractor?
Yeah, very, very good question. And what we call that is delivery methods.
Yes.
Okay, so the short answer to your question is, can we decide on a delivery method for these projects? Yes. Do you need to decide when we're in this phase of the project? No. You decide that when you get ready to go to bid. That's when you would decide your delivery method. And there are pros and cons to each one of those delivery methods, the general contractor versus the construction manager multi-prime method. this project is certainly big enough to consider the construction manager multi-prime method, and there's some pros and cons to those, which we can point out, at a future date, and possibly with the construction committee, and talk about which one of those projects is best suited for this particular, or which one of those delivery methods is best suited for this particular project. That can be determined, and a recommendation can be made to the board. But I just would add, in my experience, the most economical way to bid a project is to use the traditional design bid build, and it goes to delivery method with a general contractor in lieu of a construction manager multi-prime. You have some options with the construction manager multi-prime, but if you have a very tight budget and that's what's driving the project, in my experience, you get better bids with that type of delivery method. But again, I can point out why it's been my experience that those are that particular delivery method is more cost effective versus the construction manager multi-prime. To either the construction committee or to the board at a future date. So, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is different delivery methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we can consider, and there's a few other there's a few other types of delivery methods too, but those are the more standard type of delivery methods for a school project of this size. So we can talk about those two and any others that you want to explore.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? No? Thank you for your time, Jimmy, and for all the time that it went into obviously putting all this together. It's a lot of
Okay.
numbers.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
So, for consideration tonight, it is an action item, considering the plans to move forward to DSA for both the lighting and for this construction project. So if you have any questions about that.
Pass the time.
Later on today, would you give us a timeline, how this is going to proceed, and, when you think we're going to start construction and stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again, Jimmy. All right, now we have a presentation from Mrs. Kern on the school reopening plan.
Okay. So we're looking towards a phased-in in-person instruction planning approach so that we can make sure that we have stability as we're planning. So our first priority when we're planning is of course, is health and safety. And the second priority is to make sure that there's stability and continuity in the plan so that we're not going back and forth if we go purple or red, and we go to in our planning so that, let's say the students are in person, if there's too much instability, then if we need to send them home and then back into person, we want to make sure we're planning with health and safety first in mind, as well as the stability and continuity to continue establishing a solid learning plan. So in order to do this, to appropriately plan for in-person, we're looking at a phased approach. so that we can chunk it into aspects, because there's so much complex planning in order to be able to bring about that stability. So our first phased approach would be special education, having students return in possible small group cohorts, if parents choose, and following all the safety protocols to be able to try and return them for services. Twin Palms High School and Head Start, because those are smaller programs, so it's more feasible to try and plan for in-person return within that first phase. In the second phase, we would look at elementary, and within elementary have a phased approach for both primary and then upper. So we would look at possible return of students one grade level at a time, with the priority being the primary grades to return. And then looking at our high school, Palo Verde High School. So the questions that would be driving first, that will determine our ability to bring in-person instruction for our students is the question, are we in purple or red tier? Now, as a county, based on our state metrics, if we are in purple, that is the most restrictive, and that will restrict our ability to move forward with in-person instruction. Red is still a substantial tier, but if we're in red for 2 weeks, after 2 weeks in red, we can move forward with in-person instruction following extensive safety and health measure protocols, such as mask wearing for all, disinfecting, social distancing, and making sure frequent hand washing and monitoring movement within the school for all of our students and cohort grouping. The next question we have to answer are all staff testing every 2 months. And we have recently made progress towards this goal as one of the factors that we must meet to move forward with planning for in-person return of students. Are we working with our employee associations? So we must establish MOUs, agreements with in-person instruction, and how that would look. Are we working with our stakeholders? And we have established stakeholder groups to vet these plans. And are all the health and safety guideline recommendation mandates being met both at the federal, state, and local level? So these are the answers. These are the questions that we have to have answers for. So currently, the county tier, as of today, before noon today, yeah. So before noon today, we were in red substantial, meaning that we had passed the 2-week mark and we could continue to move forward. And at noon, when they updated the county tier system, which happens Tuesday at noon, every Tuesday at noon weekly, we are now in purple. So that definitely impacts our planning for in-person instruction return of students. Okay. So what's the impact to in-person plans district-wide? So in our phase 1, when we're talking about looking at towards special education and bringing students back in small group cohorts, and that would to give it an option for our families. We still can move forward with that type of planning. So the purple tier allows us to still plan for small group cohort if the cohort size is 16 or less, no more than 14 students and 2 adults for that cohort group. And now we would have to make sure that that cohort group did not mix with any groups outside that cohort. So for when we were thinking, for planning for Twin Palms Continuation High School, what happened was it put that on the later plan. So we still want to plan, but because we're in the purple tier and there's no waivers for secondary, it put a pause on our ability to bring the students back as we're still planning for a future date when we're able to do so. Head Start Preschool. Now, the preschool is considered a necessary child care option. It is not tied to the tier system, and so we can still plan towards a Head Start Preschool return to in-person instruction, even within the purple tier. So an update for special education. We have started the process of in-person assessments with families that have chosen this option, meeting all the safety protocols that were established, and that is currently occurring. So students are coming in person into certain areas to get assessed one-on-one with assessors if they receive special ed services or to see if they qualify. Small cohort groups for special education, that's in the planning phases. And projected timeline for Twin Palms Continuation School. Can you hear me now? It keeps going off and on.
Battery.
All right. I will yell. Can you hear me now?
We're good.
So the projected timeline was going to be for Twin Palms November 9th. And because of noon today, we entered, we had proposed a modified day, 2 hours daily, in-person instruction starting November 9th. There would be 4 in-person classes and 1 distance learning class. We would still offer families 100% distance learning option if they chose not to come in person. And we had class sizes of 10 students per class. There would be A and a B, 2 hours in the morning, then time for cleaning, and then two hours in the afternoon. And we would be able to run that daily, 5 days a week. And it was a very solid plan. We're still going to be planning for that, even though what happened today was we weren't able to start November 9th. The closest that we could start in an ideal world, if we're in purple, it's going to take 3 weeks at least in purple with metrics, if metrics were improving. And if they were improving, then we would be, if we went into red, we would need to be in red 2 weeks. So that's at least 5 weeks that it would take for us using the tier system to be able to return in person. So for Head Start, we are looking forward towards a possible November 9th date. Depending on the direction from the board tonight and other factors are required to still meet this timeline. So there's a modified day. So kind of the structure of the schedule, a modified day at 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, 4 days a week. There's two different types of days depending on, in Head Start, you can, if people qualify for full day or partial day. And so there would be a full day option and a partial day option. Partial day, 2.5, full day, 4.5. There's 6 classroom teachers would be teaching in person and 1 teacher a distance, so that we could still provide a distance learning option for our families if they choose to continue with 100% distance learning. We're looking at 10 students per class. So students, my recommendation would be that students would be required to wear a mask for preschool and primary, with keeping health and safety first. It's highly recommended by all the public health agencies at both the state and local level. We would be looking at a modified partial day, 2.5 hours, 4 days per week. There's no virtual or distance learning in that option. On the modified full day, it would be 4.5 hours, 5 days a week, and there would be a possibility optional additional activities at home. So further considerations in order to be able to move forward with Twin Palms in-person return of students is we're still in the planning phases of what that would look like for transportation. What we're going to ask of the community and parents is, if possible, if people can walk or transport themselves to the facility, since it's a major health and safety consideration in trying to transport students, and we would still offer transportation, but for families where walking and transportation is just not possible. We would be working with nutrition services. As you can see, it can get pretty complex based on Jesse's presentation today. And we're in the process of surveying each student and parent at the Head Start program, and to continue to work with employee associations. So phase 1 in-person next steps. So really what I'm asking, and at this point, and then I'll go into phase 2, is board direction with the phased approach for in-person instruction return, where we're starting in phases, making sure that that's stable before we move towards the next phase. Also asking for board direction to move forward with special education small cohort planning to see the viability of offering small cohort special ed services instruction. We would be bringing this plan to the board November 3rd at our next board meeting for review. And looking for board direction to move forward with Head Start Preschool. And we will be bringing a more detailed plan November 3rd to the board meeting for review.
Any comments? You good? Sam, anything? We're good? All right, so let's move forward. It looks like there's been so much time that's spent planning all this, and it's very appreciated. So as long as we're following health and safety standards, I really think we need to move forward with whatever we can get kids back in school.
Okay, thank you for that. So wanted to update you with the plan for in-person instruction for Phase 2 category. Elementary school grade level phased approach. We would do the similar phase approach for elementary, starting with the primary and possibly, let's say, TK and K. See if it's possible to bring students back in a hybrid approach where it would still be partial distance learning, partial in-person learning, possibly a couple of days a week, and get that stable before we bring in another grade level, then another grade level. Currently, we're in the planning stage of what that schedule would look like and the viability of that schedule. And we are currently now required to submit a waiver to both our local public health and California Department of Public Health in order to bring students back grades TK through 6th grade. 7th through 12th cannot come back on a waiver at this time. There's no waiver for secondary. We will continue to plan for stability and continuity, and we'll review our progress to the board at our next board meeting with our plans moving forward with both the waiver and the plans. One of the key factors when we're planning for larger school systems such as elementary or secondary is the ability to offer distance learning and in-person learning. It's a tricky thing to achieve with the staff that we currently have. Because if what we're asking staff is, if you're not feeling well, then do not come to work as a health and safety measure. And so our staff's doing a really good job with following the health and safety guidelines and being very diligent. And when that occurs, then we have cohorts of teachers that may not be at the school setting. And so if that were to occur, bringing students back to in-person, it's a tricky balance to be able to achieve the health and safety and have the personnel necessary to be able to create that stability and continuity that we want to achieve for our students. So a TK, for the waiver process for the board understanding is that the TK through 6th grade waiver requirement, even in the purple widespread tier, if the community spread in that metric is elevated and achieves a certain benchmark that's set by public health, and sometimes that varies, California Department of Public Health could still say that they're no longer accepting any waivers. So even though we're in the purple and we're required to have a waiver, if our numbers get too high, they may not allow waivers. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, part of the waiver process is that we would be working towards written proof of consultation with community organizations teachers' unions and parent organizations submitted with the waiver application, as well as CSCA. We would be putting together a school response plan for each of the school sites, which we're currently working on. We would need to submit a school cohorting plan for assigning students to cohorts and maintaining those cohorts. We would need to submit the every 2 months staff testing plan and address all of the California Department of Public Health, Cal OSHA, and local Riverside County Public Health guidance as part of the waiver process. So for Palo Verde High School, we are planning for what would it look like for cohort grouping of the same high school students, while providing for their graduation needs and class selection. This actually, right now, it causes mixing of the students to be able to provide with them what they need. And so the cohorting becomes very difficult to try to achieve. So for this semester, we've been working very hard on it, and we've come to the conclusion it would be best to wait for second semester and try to plan for second semester with the master scheduling in mind. The principal of Palo Verde High School is working with our consultant, Gail Matthews, and myself, and we're working hard to try to solve this conundrum of making sure students have what they need while staying in cohort groups. So we're planning on how to do this for second semester, and we'll be providing updates to the board as we go. So for Palo Verde High School, the projected timeline for possible hybrid instruction and option and choice would be January 2021. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I went over pretty quickly. So is there any questions or clarifications?
I had one.
Sure.
You said we could get a waiver for TK to 6.
Yes,
With the 7th and 8th graders falling into the high school type of rules?
that's correct.
Any other questions? No, thank you for all the time that was spent putting this together.
Okay, thank you.
Our hearing session. This is an opportunity for community members to address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. We have none this evening. Reports and communications, board member report. Dr. Guth? Mr. Hernandez?
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Burton? Mrs. Gutierrez? And I have nothing to report. Superintendent's report?
Yes, I wanted to say that I appreciate our risk management department for putting together the flu clinic that will start tomorrow at Margaret White from 12 to 4 for our employees, and we'll follow all the health and safety guidelines. So that was a lot of work, and appreciate that service to our folks here. Also this week is National School Bus Safety Week. Thanks to all of our school bus drivers, making sure our students are safely transported meals. And we have reestablished the newsletter for our staff from our HR department. And so this month, all of our staff has received a newsletter updating them on the current district-wide events and recognizing each department's contribution in serving students and staff. So thank you, HR department, for this helpful resource.
Reports of associations. I have a letter for CSEA. Good evening. If you are reading this, I was unable to make it tonight. I will be here next meeting though. I would like to take this time to let you know we are almost finished with negotiating for our 2020-2021 successor agreement. We are waiting for the green light from the district's council on the language changes, etc., so we can sign and get it ratified. Because we are waiting for our 2020 successor agreement to be completed, we have not started negotiating the return of students to the sites. We have many questions on how or what the district plans are for food service, transportation, custodial, and paraeducators. We do know that some of these positions will not change from what they are currently doing, but we want to be prepared for all possibilities. Robert Figueroa and myself have monthly meetings with Ms. Kern, Mr. Sanchez, and Mrs. Smith. We discuss what is coming up, our concerns, and their concerns. CSEA likes that we have open lines of communication. When looking over the COVID-19 site plan for Ruth Brown, it was pretty detailed. It gave what to expect, how it should look, and what needs to be done when school reopens. CSEA will most likely include most of what was used in the safety plan when we do go into negotiations. In March, we had scheduled for about 10 paraeducators and 2 bus drivers to attend the CSEA Paraeducator Conference. Of course, it was canceled, but they will be having a virtual one this March. Many of our paraeducators have expressed interest in attending, so we will be bringing this up to Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Kern to see if this is a possibility. There will be a fee for each paraeducator attending, but if it matches the in-person conference, it will be worth it. Thank you, Diana Vabanco, CSEA First Vice President. We have no other reports of associations. Consent items. Items listed under the consent calendar motions are considered to be routine and are acted on by the governing board in one motion. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items be discussed and/or removed from the consent agenda. It is understood that administration recommends approval of all consent items. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the governing board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Martha will now read our consent items.
L1 minutes, L2 professional report.
Personal report number 2020-21-06. L3 ratification purchase order listing for September 2020. L4 approval for request permission to purchase Gizmo Math and Science full site license for PVHS. L5 ratification quote for Renaissance Learning for training webinars. L6 approval for 2020-21 ESSER CSI prompts form.
Call for a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Action items. Action item M1, submission of architectural plans to DSA for approval. Twin Palms High School District Office Modernization projects and District Office New Construction Project. Call for a motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M2, submission of architectural plans to DSA for approval. Palo Verde High School Sport Field Lighting Project. Call for a motion. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M3, approval school site security project change order number 2. Call for a motion. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M4, approval and adoption textbook for agriculture, environmental science, and agriculture earth science at Palo Verde High School. Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? M5, approval Think Sursa proposal. Call for motion. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M6, approval of quote from Music First. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M7, approval of 2020-21 agreement for information system support services, business and student system support, Galaxy support with Riverside County Office of Education. Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? M8, approval of service agreement with Blythe Mart. Questions or comments? Blythe Mart. It's the new name for Blythe Drug.
Oh. I thought it was a little easy.
That one stayed open.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M9, adoption of Riverside County SELPA policies and procedures. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M10, approval of 2020-21 COVID-19 school site safety plans. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Discussion and information items. N1, information, the Jrotc program update. Ms. Tracy Kern.
I just wanted to update the board on that we're making progress with working with Army Jrotc and the sergeant coordinator, working with our district office team, and we're shoring up the program, making sure all the contract and agreements are in place, and next steps towards flying the position for the 2 instructors, as well as needing to work with PVTA because it had gone into PVTA for those positions, and so we have a subcommittee happening to allow us to move forward with beginning next steps to fly the position. So I just wanted to give updates to the board about that. Okay.
Right. N2, discussion Rcoe Cte Program.
Okay, so the CTE RCOE program, which has 3 pathways, it's on a 3-year renewal. We have to give 8 months notice on the 3rd year so this is the 3rd year of that renewal. And I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I am going to request if they would consider like an annual option as we do a 3-year renewal, and make that request official. I'm not sure if they would grant that request, but I just wanted to let you know that this is the 3rd year. If we would need to give notice now if we were not going to renew after 3 years. And my recommendation would be go ahead and renew as we evaluate our programs, and just wanted to have a discussion with the board and get direction about that.
Is that the culinary ag and computer science? Or the computer class? Okay.
Thank you. All right, any other business? Any future agenda items?
I just, maybe next time we can get a timeline from the architect to see what our timeline would be with these projects. If he can write something down, because, I don't want things to drag on like our egg. But if we had a timeline, we have an idea, because I know things take a long time, but it'd be nice if we can get these projects done before the next school year begins, if that's possible. The other thing I haven't heard for a long time is about the electric school buses. Just want to know what's going on with those buses.
Those for the next board, okay?
Our next regular meeting Tuesday, November 3rd.